We are Makilala TV, the first Filipino-American TV talk show in the New York metro area. Get to know us as we talk to the community leaders, innovators, advocates, and emerging artists who affect Filipino-American life.
The pandemic did something wonderful to pastry chef Daniel Joseph Corpuz. He began to create confections using chocolates, bonbons, truffles, dark and white chocolates. Like he was telling us, chocolate became his comfort food during a dark and uncertain time. Daniel has launched his eponymous Daniel Corpuz Chocolatier using Filipino and Asian ingredients. He opened a chocolate shop on Canal Street with flavors like soy sauce caramel and tea-tasting candies. On behalf of Makilala TV and my co-hosts Rachelle and Cristina Pastry and guest co-host Elizabeth Cueva, I would like to dedicate this episode in honor of the late Chef King Fajanakong, who passed away on January 2nd at the age of 54. Like Daniel Corpuz, King was a bright star in the food universe, and both were supremely innovative entrepreneurs. So, Daniel, welcome to Makilala TV.
Thank you for having me.
And my first question is really, we really want to get to know you. Tell us how you got started and what got you into what we all love, personally, chocolates.
Chocolates,
Yeah.
desserts,
Yes.
pastries.
Yes.
Once again, thank you for having me. It's funny because the journey that I've had is quite interestingly quick, if that makes sense. I graduated from culinary school 3 years ago with an associate's in baking and pastry and a bachelor's in business administration. But the crux of my experience has been in restaurants, working in Michelin restaurants here in New York City, and I really much enjoyed that. The one thing that kind of threw a wrench in that was, for most people, was COVID.
Yeah.
March 13th, I remember that day very well. Went to work, made some stuff, only to be told that we were going to close for the next 2 weeks, and that 2 weeks never ended.
Yes.
From there, kind of while I was at home, I couldn't just do nothing. I was like, okay, what can I do? What can I sell? And what is something that no one else was doing? And funny enough, it was actually chocolate. Chocolates on the caliber of bonbons, which are the artistically designed pieces of chocolate, but then also mini chocolate showpieces like sculptures, making foot tall flower, or just there's one in particular which is Filipino inspired, where it's tinikling sticks out of chocolate, and a hand painted sampaguita and so on.
Oh, really? Yeah.
But yeah, from there, kind of everything fell into place, allowing me to kind of open up and lean in hard on chocolate as my main kind of one source of income, but also passion, which I very much enjoy.
Do you still make any kind of pastries, or are you focusing on chocolate for now?
Every once in a while, I do still flex my culinary degree. So, for example, over the summer, I still did a dessert tasting. So I invited people to come. They were able to have a 2-course dessert tasting, where it was a pre-dessert, which was a scoop of Sakura ice cream. And then they had a choice of either the strawberry shortcake, which was strawberry ganache, fresh strawberries, basil ice cream, or the chocolate s'mores, which was graham cracker ice cream, chocolate mousse, and light brown sugar meringue. I still enjoy it, but I think what's very fun and what I very much enjoy is just working with chocolate.
Those are so delectable. Daniel, I first got to know about you through this Netflix show, School of Chocolate.
Yes.
And what happened first? You're starting with your pop-up stores or the show?
Well, funny enough, most people have found me from Netflix. I've always said that it's always fun meeting people who watch the show. There are times where I'm either at the shop or I'm maybe at a pop-up and people are like, wait a second, where do I know you from?
Yeah, that's
And
right.
sometimes it takes people a few seconds. They're like, do we go to school? Do I work with you? Have I dated you? and then once it clicks, oh my gosh, you're right. I did watch you.
Yeah.
The show was actually before the shop, or before the business kind of deal. Because during COVID, right, early days, I was making chocolates here and there. and posted a lot on Instagram. And that's actually how they found me. Somebody reached out, messaged me on Instagram being like, hey, we have a new show all about chocolate. Would you be interested in potentially going on it? And I was like, all right, I'm stuck at home anyways. Why not?
Yeah.
And I sent them like all my work. They had me do some stuff at home and so on. And I guess they liked me. They liked the story. They liked my work. That they had me on the show. Post-show, that's when I was like, okay, I'm going to lean in hard and actually build this business. And that's when I started doing pop-ups.
So what personality trait do you think is the most that somebody would really need to be in this type of business?
Being crazy.
Oh,
That's actually
okay. Definitely not me then.
I always tell people that I'm crazy, but in a good way.
Okay.
Or psychotic, actually. That's the word I use.
Oh my God. That's
So I wanted to know, why do you like working with chocolate? What is it about that ingredient?
I think what I love about chocolate is the fact that, one, I think we all have it. We all like eat it. But then to be able to transform it in such a different way. You know what I mean? I think, for example, right now, someone has said this before, where it's like, you're actually one of the few Filipino chocolatiers that I know of, who's taking either Filipino or Asian chocolate, transforming it into a bonbon, very artistically designed, or into a showpiece. And I think that's one of my biggest things at the shop, or in what I do, is actually using Filipino or Asian cacao. And I always tell people it's because as an industry, we've been so used to using cacao and chocolate from South America, South Africa, that we forget that chocolate can grow anywhere near the equator. And what country is near the equator? The Philippines, right?
Of course.
Along with other
We
countries
are?
other
Okay.
countries like Taiwan and Malaysia and Vietnam, and a lot of those countries do produce chocolate. It's just we've never been given the opportunity to sell at mass until maybe now.
Is the Filipino chocolate same quality as, for example, chocolate from the Ivory Coast?
Yeah, it's different.
It's different, yeah.
Similar, because when I talk about chocolate, it's in the same vein of wine or coffee.
Yeah.
There's this term called terroir, which essentially means where things are grown, influences how it tastes, how it feels,
Yes,
and
true,
so on.
yeah.
So same thing with chocolate. If you buy chocolate from, let's say, Africa, you're going to get a very robust red fruit note, like strawberry, raspberry. If you get chocolate from, let's say, South America, you might have yellow fruit flavors, right? More so of apricots or passion fruit.
Yeah.
And in the Philippines or in Asia, you get a very kind of I don't say bitter, but there's this very earthy flavor to it. So at the shop, for example, sometimes I'll have canisters, one of beans from Vietnam and one from the Philippines.
Oh.
And I'll have people actually smell the two different ones. And it's so distinct. And people are...
Can they tell?
In a way, yeah. Because,
Yeah.
for example, the Vietnam or the Vietnamese cacao is definitely more earthy. Whereas the cacao from, let's say, Davao, that's where I get it from, in the Philippines, is that same red fruity, that robust chocolate aroma that everyone kind of thinks about when it comes to chocolate.
I really love visiting your shop. I'm gonna have to now smell the cacao, the differences. But it's like art. What you make is absolute art, and I think that's what makes it so beautiful. Can you tell us, because this is how I found more about your story, is through this initiative called Philippines Fest. Can you tell us a little bit more about that group?
Yeah, so Philippines Fest, it's this, we've been using the word platform. It's been founded by Audrey Francisco and Paolo Manayed, along with Vijay Navarro, Craig Nesparos, and myself. We are the 5 committee members of the Philippines Fest. And what it is, as I said, is a platform for smaller businesses, smaller Filipino businesses, because let's be honest, a lot of us have found kind of this initiative to be an entrepreneur during COVID, right? I myself am a product of these pop-ups that Cabecera, which is owned by Ate Augie, has hosted, right? So we are, I think, trying to take what we've built or what they've built, because I wasn't there back in the day. My very first pop-up, funny enough, was in 2021, before the show came out, but after it filmed. And I had this 2-foot by 2-foot table, maybe not much bigger than this table,
Yeah.
for my chocolates. And no one knew who I was, but Ate Augie gave me a chance. She was like, yeah, why not? Sell here. And it was 94 degrees and I was selling chocolate.
That was at Cabecera,
Yeah,
right?
that was still at
I remember
Cabecera.
I lined up, but the moment I got there, it's all out.
Oh, my
So
Philippines-
Philippines bonbons.
Philippines Fest is food oriented.
In a way, but there's
okay.
also, we do have like retail kind of like vendors as well. So Paolo, for
okay,
example,
right.
sells fabrics or
Oh,
clothing
okay,
and
yeah.
with weaved fabric from the Philippines. But yeah, so what that is practically is we now are taking that start and amplifying it even more.
How is it doing so far?
Doing well. I think
Very
many
well.
people are quite familiar with our very first event, which was Ube Fest here in New York City.
Yeah.
And I think all of us were stunned and shocked as vendors and
Yeah,
business
yeah.
owners, because we've done pop-ups before with the same group of people. And we kind of have an expectation of what it is. It'll be a good day. You know, there'll be a lot of people. We'll have some, Filipino barbecue. We'll get some ube ice cream or whatever, and so
that's
on.
right.
But when we held Ube Fest in August of 2022, it was insane. It was
Yes.
insane. All of us, even myself and people like Aji and Cabecera, who are full-on business owners who have like brick and mortars and have been doing this for years, were also struggling to keep up with
Yeah.
the demand that weekend.
That's right, yeah.
Like on Friday, the very first day of that Ube Fest, we thought it'd be a slower day. It's a Friday, right? We'll get a few people, they'll want to buy, but no. A lot of our vendors, we opened at 11. Some of our vendors sold out at 1 p.m.
Oh, God.
Only to go home, make more just for Saturday.
Wow.
And I was in that same boat
Yeah.
where maybe we closed at 7, right? So
Yeah.
around like 5 o'clock, I called it. And I was in the midst of making more stuff just for the next day.
Oh, my gosh.
So your buyers are not all Filipinos, right?
What was that?
Your buyers are not all Filipinos.
No, not at
right?
all.
Okay.
And I think
Yeah.
that's what's great right now is that since 2019, I've noticed as a culinary student back then, Filipino food has been on the rise, right?
Great.
It's no longer just lumpia and ube, right? I think more and more people are getting introduced to what more Filipino food is, what more Filipino flavors are, and I think that's what I kind of do at the shop as well. My menu is not the traditional chocolatier menu. We're taught in culinary school that caramel, hazelnuts, strawberries will always sell. But I'm like, screw that. No, I'm going to sell soy sauce caramel. I'm going to sell
That's right.
calamansi,
I'd love to taste
It's
that.
a pandan,
pandan,
and
ube,
those.
and a good half of the menu is very Filipino, Asian inspired.
The Philippine Fest is it just food based or anything Filipino American?
Anything Filipino American. I think going off of what you asked, right? We have some few retail vendors. As long as they're kind of like Filipino owned, Filipino inspired, these are definitely like, the people that we want to attract kind of deal, right?
So you've done Ube Fest, Lumpia Fest, Calamansi Fest, right?
There's always a theme.
Yes, adobo
So
Fest.
is that the
Yeah.
idea to
I
always have a
think
theme?
so.
Oh, okay.
It energizes people, right? Because for example, when we say ube, you know what's going to be there.
Right.
It's been
Yeah,
ube,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Anything and everything purple. When it was, let's say, Lumpia Fest, you saw everything and anything spring roll wrapped, right? So for me, I was able to, even though like I don't necessarily make savory food, one, I tapped my mom, so she was at the shop. She was actually frying lumpia next to me,
Yes.
as I was making turon, which was my at least take on
Banana,
the lumpia,
yeah, uh-huh.
right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so having themes has definitely helped. And it also challenges kind of our vendors in a way to find that connection, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And sometimes pushes them out of their comfort zone to create a product that they're like, oh my gosh, this sold really well. Now I might keep this on my menu going forward.
Yeah. What I love about that community and that group of people is that from what I see and observed, it's not really more of like the crab mentality that we usually have in the Filipino community, where when someone succeeds, they kind of want to pull people down. They're more of like the growth mindset of like, if someone's succeeding, we help push them even higher.
And very collaborative.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's hard to find people like that, working with people like that, like-minded, and not very, jealous of somebody's success.
Yeah.
So what are the challenges that you have faced when you you're trying to build your name, your product, and also collaborating with these other entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I think like as a small business, the first thing you need to do is find a product that sells. It's always what I tell everyone.
Yes.
Doesn't matter if you have a logo, doesn't matter if you have a storefront, doesn't matter if you have an Instagram. You need a product that sells. Because as long as you have a product that you can trust and that will sell, that's all you practically need. You can go outside and sell it and people will buy it, right? Fortunately, I've been, as a new business owner, if I'll say it like that, I've been fortunate not to necessarily have that crab mentality kind of like around me. I think I've been fortunate to find this collective of individuals who are kind of, like you said, very supportive of each other. And it's fun because like as somebody with a business degree, I'm able to, like also talk and chat with some of our other smaller vendors who may have full-time jobs as nurses or artists or whatever, and they just do this as a hobby and be able to kind of fill in the blanks of what they might need, or kind of like, give them resources or advice in a way. And by all means, I always tell people, it's like, you don't have to take my advice. You'd be like, Daniel, shut up. I don't care what you're saying. But I've been fortunate that some of our smaller businesses do see the value in chatting with us as full-on business owners.
Daniel, I eat a lot of chocolate, okay? But I can't tell the difference between the different kinds of chocolate. Can you explain the difference between ganache and truffle? And what else? White chocolate.
Oh, I was going to say we should start with that first, right?
Start with white chocolate because it's not brown.
Yeah. So
why is it called chocolate?
Yeah, absolutely. So one, let's start with the fact that chocolate's a fruit. So it is healthy in moderation. Let's put it like that.
Yes.
If you ever have the fortune to actually see the cacao pod, sometimes you'll see it actually in Asian food stores here in the US. But if you're in like the Philippines or near the equator, you'll see it. You can cut it up. It's actually white flesh and like almost like mangosteen. So you could eat the white pulp.
Oh, really?
Right, it's pretty sweet. And inside the pulp is the beans. That's what's fermented, dried, and made into chocolate.
Oh, okay.
So dark chocolate primarily is why it looks the way it looks is because it uses cocoa liqueur or cocoa solids, which is the nibs, sugar, and some cocoa butter. That's it. Milk chocolate, same exact thing, but you're adding milk powder. So it actually has a creamier feel to it. And then white chocolate keeps the sugar, cocoa butter, and the milk powder, but gets rid of the cocoa nibs. And that is why it's still chocolate, but not brown.
Oh.
And ganache and truffles.
Oh, yeah. So I guess like ganache is just a filling for chocolates. That's what I primarily use for all my bonbons.
Yeah.
And from there, a truffle versus a bonbon. Truffle is something more traditional, like you'd see like on store shelves. It's just a ganache tossed in cocoa powder or like some fruitine flakes or whatever it may be. And then the bonbon is the artistically designed one, which is usually painted, sprayed, splattered with colored cocoa butter, which is what I usually do. Yeah.
So where do you get your inspiration when you make these chocolate creations? Because sometimes they're so beautiful, I can't even buy them. And even like the flavor profile, they're kind of unique for like this American taste.
Yep. And so I mean, like design-wise, I usually take inspiration from anywhere. The one story I always talk about is my black sesame bonbon, because
Try that.
because the design of it is actually from when I was in China in 2019. My hotel in Beijing had this huge mural. It was individual nails nailed onto the wall at different depths, so that when you stepped away, you saw this entire like picture of like this river with mountains and so on. But on the side of the mural was this very small painting of a koi fish. And that is actually what caught my eye more. And that's actually the inspiration to the design of the black sesame bonbon. As for flavors wise, I usually try to transform not only flavors, but also just desserts. So one of my favorite Filipino desserts is sansirval.
Oh yeah.
That speaks to
That's
me.
nice,
I
right?
usually had it, growing up as for my birthday. So I've transitioned what is usually meringue sheets, buttercream, and cashews into a bonbon by having what I call vanilla hazelnut bonbon. So it's a layer of hazelnut gianduja, which is just nut paste and chocolate.
Another French word.
Another French word that we'll say, that sounds good.
It is hazelnut, right?
Yep, exactly. With a layer of vanilla ganache. So it's almost like that sensation of a sansirval.
Do you market your chocolates as Filipino chocolate?
For the most part, I think they're Filipino inspired or Asian inspired. That's always
So
what it is.
can Filipino chocolates compete with Belgian, French chocolate?
I think so. Funny enough, there's actually a company I've worked with called Oro that has actually gained accolades for their chocolate. Funny
It's a
enough,
Filipino company.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Oro.
Oro.
Or rose and gold?
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
And I was fortunate to work with them and meet them, one of the owners, Marco Campo, last year. And funny enough, I'm actually going back to the Philippines this March. And I'm hoping to potentially teach a master class with them and so on. So, you know, it's not finalized, but I guess now it is.
Now it is. Now you're going to make it.
I heard about that
You're some
plan.
sort of a celebrity. So whenever people buy, chocolates, they want to have a photo up with you.
For the most part.
Is that okay?
Yeah,
Cool.
it's always fun. I think, like I said earlier, it's always been fun meeting people who watch the show
Yeah.
or who are familiar with what I do, because those are the people that have supported me and is the reason why I continue to do what I do. Not only because it's it's a source of income, but it's also just the fact that it brings me joy.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
In this idea of as somebody who worked in restaurants before, it's long hours. You're on your feet for 10, 12 hours.
Yeah.
And it's a very rigorous and very difficult industry to be in. But one of the things that has always kept us, that's why I go back to what do we need to be in this industry is be crazy. And one of the few things that has kept us as pastry chefs or chefs in general going is the fact that people enjoy what we do because it is an art in a way. So.
Yes, it is.
So how do you see yourself 5-10 years from now?
I think it's funny because I used to be that kind of planner. But then when COVID hit, I think I kind of got rid of that idea of let me plan 20 years ahead.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll at least answer the 5-year one because I think that one's still in spitting distance. I definitely would like to have my own brick and mortar for this chocolate space. I also think that I'd like to build out my team a bit more so that I'm able to step away, create other businesses or other concepts, but then also potentially travel a bit more. I think I always, like you said, celebrity in a way. There are definitely people who always are like, come here. And I think we have a responsibility as chefs or people in the industry to also not only, learn as much as we can, but also inspire and teach.
Right.
I've always said this, even back when I was in culinary school, we should never think of ourselves at the top. We should always think of ourselves in the middle, because there's always going to be someone that we can aspire to become, but then there's also someone behind us that we can inspire and teach.
And you're such a great
Really?
speaker
We're
too,
so-
right?
so young.
Are you thinking of teaching
One day.
pastry art in one of the universities?
I think so. One day, I'd love to teach, inspire that new generation, and I think it's my way to pay it back. As but someone who went to culinary school, there are definitely chefs that inspired me, energized me to continue to work in this industry. So yeah, I think I'd love to.
So what kind of a service or support do you think you need to propel you to the next level?
I think, funny enough, we spoke about this. Funny enough, I think right now my business is self-funded, right? Finding capital is something that I think a lot of business owners can struggle with, right? I think there are so many resources out there like small business association loans. And I think as I take on the next step, that could be something or a resource that I take advantage of now.
So you're not, are you averse to borrowing from relatives or friends?
I think
Have
borrowing,
you tried that even?
borrowing in general is, I think, it's hard, right? You want to build something, but then you never, for example, I think one business owner that I've worked with or spoke to said it best. When you're owning your own business, especially if it's still new, try your best not to loan anything or borrow anything, because you're
really?
still
Why?
trying to find out what your business is. If you borrow somebody's money and let's say they're funding you fully, now they potentially have the say to be like, you should
They
do
can
this.
dictate
In
what
a way,
the money-
because it's
yeah.
their money.
They can give
right?
you the direction
Let's
of
be
what,
honest. And rightfully so, it's their money. But no, their advice was run your business by yourself for at least 5 years. Because then when you have somebody who's either going to fund you or a partner, whatever it may be, to help you out, if they start saying, you should do this, you should do this, you have the right to sometimes be like, no.
Yeah.
Because I've run this business for 5 years. Not saying that you should be opposed to new ideas to potentially grow and expand, but if they're trying to bring your business to a different, totally concept, then that's not how it should be. So.
Yeah. And
Is
so,
it? Oh, go ahead.
No, I wanted to actually say we're about to close the episode already. It's so fast. But let's first do your last question, then I'll do.
Just a crazy question. Is there a Filipino dessert that you'd like to tweak and apply chocolate to? Like, for example,
Ooh, are we gonna get the
suman with chocolate or something?
Yeah, we're gonna get
Something
the
like
first
that.
dib.
I think, so my mom always makes cassava cake. And I think that would be something that I still have to try, but I think I could potentially spice
Recreate
that
that.
up.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
That's great.
Actually, another fun question I have is, other than people asking you for selfies, people ask you for discounts? And how do you answer that?
Fortunately, I don't think many people do, but I do have my one-off people. And funny enough, I think, we talked about this also earlier, where it's like Filipinos sometimes have that idea of like, ooh, because you're Filipino,
that's
we should
right.
get something for free.
Yes, yes, yes.
And I don't do that, funny enough. If you're Filipino, you're here, you should respect what I do, the craft that I do, and how much time we've put into it. And my prices are my prices.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Don't get me wrong, I'm not pressuring anyone to buy anything from me, but that's just what it is.
Yeah. And so now tell us, where can we find and taste your chocolates?
Yeah, so you can certainly find me here in New York City. That's one. Some people have found me on the train, and they're like, hi. But as for my chocolates, as of right now, you can find me at Canal Street Market in Chinatown. That's where my main shop is. You'll also find a few other Filipino businesses there, which is very fun. But yeah, all my chocolates, from the dragées, the truffles, bonbons, and so on, all 18 flavors, from ube to sea salt caramel, is all there. So
The website, we can order online.
at the moment, no. I'm trying to build out my website or shipping program a bit more.
Okay.
Soon, hopefully, I'll
Okay.
be able to do that.
Yeah. Well, you definitely can be able to get orders from us. It sounds
Nice.
so good. You said 18 flavors?
Yes,
18.
18.
Wow.
Can you try to name most of them? Because
Yes.
I'm curious what
Okay,
they all
okay.
are. If
Well,
you're
right now-
Filipino inspired.
Yeah, right now it's, starting with Filipino inspired, it's ube, pandan, calamansi, my turon flavor, which is caramelized banana, the sanserval, which I talked about. More Asian flavors is the oolong tea, soy sauce caramel, sakura tea, and then the other ones are just very generic or more
Yeah,
traditional, like again sea salt caramel, cheesecake, and hazelnut, and so on. So that's most of them. There's a few that I'm missing. I'm gonna go back to the shop and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I forgot that one.
Do you have people working for you?
Yes, I do
How
have a few
many?
people. I hire, honestly, a lot of Filipino college kids. So
Oh,
at
nice.
most during Christmas, for example, I had 16 college kids helping me sell my
What?
products.
Yeah, it's almost
Helping
like
you
an
sell
internship.
or not
In a
helping
way.
you
Yeah.
make the chocolate?
Just selling. So
I
I
just
still make
sell.
everything that we
Oh,
sell.
okay.
Or your mom helps you.
If she's gonna sell like lumpia and stuff, then she does that.
Do you have a secret? That's why you don't want other people to help you.
I think it's very detail oriented.
Oh, okay,
I'll have to
all
invest
right.
in somebody like.
I'll
to
take
really-
that.
Really, yeah. We'll be your taste testers.
Yeah.
That's what we will do.
We can do it right now.
Yes, yes. Oh, so we do have some sample chocolates here, but I just wanted to say thank you again for
Thank you,
Daniel for coming
Daniel.
out
Thank you,
to us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for the MNN teen, and maraming salamat to all our supporters and viewers. Let's take a few moments now to just find out what these are here.
Where is the tiramisu?
This one, I'm gonna open it quick.
Oh,
'cause
okay,
sometimes
sure.
people have difficulties open.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you three and my three younger brothers are now the taste testers.
Oh, really?
Ooh.